Portugal is one of football's greatest paradoxes. A nation of just over 10 million people that consistently produces world-class talent, world-class clubs, and world-class moments. A country that has given football icons like Eusebio, Luis Figo, Deco, and Cristiano Ronaldo. And now a new generation that looks just as dangerous on paper as anything Europe has ever seen. And yet, despite all of this, something still feels unresolved. Something still feels incomplete. Because when you step back and look at Portugal not as highlights, not as individual brilliance, not as viral moments on social media, but as a national team competing in the most pressure-filled tournaments in world football, a question keeps coming back. Why doesn't it fully click? Why does a squad with this much talent still feel like it is searching for something it should already have? Portugal fans need to hear this. It is not a question of talent. It has never been a question of talent. In fact, if anything, Portugal has suffered from the opposite problem. Too much talent without a consistent system to fully organize it. For years, Portugal's identity was shaped around Cristiano Ronaldo. And that is not a criticism, it is just reality. When you have one of the greatest goal scorers the sport has ever seen, everything naturally bends toward maximizing him. Every tactical decision, every transition, every attacking pattern was influenced by the need to get him into decisive positions. That approach brought success, and it brought a European championship. But it also created a long-term structural habit. Portugal learned how to survive games, how to manage moments, how to rely on individual brilliance and emotional resilience rather than sustained tactical control. And that identity still echoes through the team today. Even now, years into a post-Ronaldo-centered structure, Portugal still feels caught between two versions of itself. One version is pragmatic, compact, defensive when necessary, built on discipline and organization. The other version is modern, fluid, technically gifted, and full of midfielders and attackers who thrive in possession-based systems at elite clubs. The problem is that these two identities do not always merge cleanly. And when they clash, Portugal becomes unpredictable in a way that is not always positive. Because unpredictability in football is only an advantage when it is controlled. When it is not controlled, it becomes inconsistency. Look at the current generation. Bruno Fernandes creating chances from impossible angles. Bernardo Silva dictating tempo and drifting between lines. Rafael Leo stretching defenses with raw acceleration. Vitinha controlling rhythm with calm intelligence. Ruben Dias anchoring the defense with authority. This is not a team lacking structure because of poor players. This is a team struggling to define how those players fit together in a way that maximizes collective dominance. And that is the key difference. At club level, these players are system-defined. They know their exact role, their exact zones, their exact responsibilities in every phase of play. But in international football, time is limited. Chemistry is built in short cycles. Tactical repetition is minimal compared to club environments. So if the national system is not crystal clear, even elite players end up overlapping, drifting, or compensating for each other rather than synchronizing. That is where Portugal often loses control of games at the highest level. Not because they cannot compete, but because they are not always aligned in how they compete. There is also another layer that is rarely spoken about openly. Role conflict. Portugal has multiple players who naturally want to influence the same central spaces. Multiple creators who want touches between the lines. Multiple attackers who prefer drifting inside. Multiple midfielders who want to progress the ball through similar channels. When that happens without strict structure, the team can look beautiful in moments but fragmented over 90 minutes. One player drops deep to build. Another wants to receive in the same zone. A winger cuts inside while a midfielder occupies the half space. Suddenly the structure compresses, passing lanes disappear, and instead of controlled progression, Portugal ends up recycling possession without clear penetration. At the highest level of international football, that becomes a problem in knockout matches where one or two moments define everything. Because while Portugal is trying to solve spacing issues in real time, elite opponents are already operating with a fixed identity. They know exactly how they defend, exactly how they transition, and exactly how they attack under pressure. This is where tournaments are often decided, not by who has more talent, but by who has more clarity. Portugal has been stuck in a long transition phase between eras. The Euro 2016 victory is both a triumph and a psychological anchor. It proved Portugal can win at the highest level, but it also created a blueprint that does not fully match the current generation anymore. That team was built on defensive organization, emotional resilience, and maximizing key moments. It was not a dominant possession team. It was not a high-pressing machine. It was a team that understood how to survive pressure and strike at the right time. But today's Portugal has a very different profile of players. more technical midfielders, more creative attackers, more ball-dominant profiles emerging from top European clubs, players who are used to controlling games, not just reacting to them. And this creates a tension between legacy identity and modern capability. Portugal is no longer just a team that survives games. It is a team that should be controlling them. But the system has not always fully caught up to that reality. This is why matches can sometimes feel like two different versions of Portugal existing in the same game. One version is confident, fluid, and expressive. The other becomes cautious, reactive, and dependent on individual moments when structure breaks down. That inconsistency is what frustrates fans more than anything else. Because they can see the ceiling. They know what this squad is capable of when everything clicks. They have seen it in bursts, in halves, in spells where Portugal looks like one of the most dangerous teams in world football. But sustaining that level is the challenge. And sustaining it is not about motivation. It is not about passion. It is not about national pride. It is about repetition of structure under pressure. Great international teams are not just collections of talent. They are systems that reduce uncertainty. Spain had a defined possession model. Germany had structured efficiency and machine-like transitions. France built a hybrid system that balances physical dominance with tactical flexibility. Argentina combined emotional intensity with clear attacking patterns and defensive organization. Every successful team has one thing in common: clarity of identity. Portugal is still searching for that final, fully stable version of itself. And until that identity is locked in, until the roles are completely defined, until the system allows the talent to function as a unified machine rather than isolated brilliance, Portugal will continue to fluctuate between brilliance and frustration. This is not a criticism of the players. It is not a dismissal of their ability. It is an acknowledgement that international football is not won by talent alone. It is won by how that talent is organized under pressure. Portugal fans need to hear this clearly. The gap between Portugal and consistent dominance is not as large as it feels in emotional moments. It is actually quite small in footballing terms. But small gaps at the elite level are the hardest to close, because they are not physical gaps. They are structural ones, and structural gaps require time, consistency, and a willingness to fully commit to an identity, even when matches become difficult. Portugal is standing at that exact crossroads right now. Not rebuilding, not declining, but deciding. And what they choose next will determine whether this generation becomes a team remembered for what it almost achieved, or a team remembered for finally completing what so many generations before it started.